Stephanie here, and I'm out collecting some mushrooms and some food. Snow is coming and I want to get a little food prepped, and it looks like we've got some oyster mushrooms. These aren't ready yet, but they're coming in. So we just had a good rain all day today, and that's when you want to check your mushrooms. Usually 24 or so hours after. I was just curious if it motivated any of these to start fruiting, and it did. And this year is a year we need to do more logs. You want to do new logs. I'm trying to do new logs every single year to have a consistent harvest of mushrooms, and you want to do them sort of the end of winter before spring while there's still lots of carbohydrates in the tree you cut down. So we'll be doing this probably February sometime, cutting down a few trees. I want to get a better setup. We were new to this when we started it, and I have harvested a lot of mushrooms, but I know we can do better next time. But look at how gorgeous that is. And these right here are shiitake, so a little bit different. So we've got some oyster. It looks like some oyster coming in. Yeah, that's definitely oyster. And then these are our shiitakes. These are small. I'm not going to harvest these because these can get really large. So I'm going to prop this up, and that's exciting. We'll have mushrooms to eat in just a couple of days. And some of these got tumbled over, so we've got some more shiitake, so, and another one coming in. So I'm just gonna get a bunch of them on this side. Actually, there's lots of little pups coming up. I'm gonna just prop these up, get them off the ground a little bit so they don't do that. Okay, and when you inoculate logs, typically what you inoculate is what's going to be on the log, so you can tell if it's not, which you inoculated if something went wrong or another species took over. This, I'm not sure what this is. This is not a shiitake. It's not an oyster. So I need to do a little digging. We planted a few other varieties. So I need to go back through and do a little research before we eat this. Be very careful with mushrooms. You never want to eat anything you're not sure what it is. This one I'm a little questionable about because it looks so grocery store like. I don't know what you would call that. I'm leaning towards something we planted because rarely do I see this perfect of a mushroom growing a wild log. But I will definitely check this out before we eat it. There's snow coming and it's so quiet and still. But actually what I'm listening for is I hear water. We have springs on this property. I know where one is on the other side, but I'm pretty sure there's one down here in this valley down here. So here's where my no-dig garden beds used to be. This yard's really small, and I have to decide. I did put some fruit trees in here. I've got berries along the house, but this will start to turn into permaculture. So this will be turned into some raised beds for the things that can't grow in the towers, and then surrounded by a permaculture food forest type potager setup. On the other side of the property here, all along the forest, is berries. So there's blackberries, black raspberries, regular raspberries, and I have introduced actually commercial varieties to the forest line too. So there's wild ones, and then I've also added more of the commercial style, and I chose to do it along the forest edge because they already grow there naturally. I don't have to worry about trellising, and it just kind of gives us a wild landscaping, and that was one of our goals when we decided to move. We had said we wanted to move where our house was like cut out and surrounded by nature, and we weren't trying to fight nature to make it look like something or be something that it's not, because that can be high maintenance and cost a lot of money trying to landscape and manage that. So the forest line is our food. Now the cool part of that is it's really easy to go see the food when it's ready and harvest it, and it's so abundant. I'll show you guys in the spring. It's amazing. The downside is the bears also like to eat the berries. So this year's been a big bear year for us, and they have definitely had their fill of my berries. All right, it's getting dark quick, but what I'm doing is harvesting. I'm going to harvest some peppermint for a recipe we're going to make, and I harvested some thyme, and I'm going to go ahead and let this start drying out for some tincture that I want to store up for medicinal purposes. I like to harvest thyme in the winter. It has the most incredible smell. I feel like it's sweeter in the winter. It gets this deep dark purple to it. You can see the purple in there, and the purple adds another purple foods have anthocyanins in it, and it doesn't have that in the summer gardens. So winter is my favorite time to harvest our thyme supply. Okay, it's dark now, but for one of the recipes we're gonna make, I need peppermint, and I grow peppermint in my permaculture gardens. That's what's here. I know they say never plant peppermint directly in the ground. It does take over, but I actually like it that way. I can feed it to the chickens, and a ground cover of peppermint is pretty incredible. So let's head to the garage, and we need to harvest some things off the towers. We're going to be making a few recipes. I haven't quite decided what yet. It will just depend on what is ready inside the garage. So let's go in there now. All right, welcome to the garage. This is where we grow all of the food in the winter. Aside from our more wild herbs that we grow outside and the mushrooms, I think for the menu today, I am going to get parsley and we'll make tabouli. That's what the peppermint is for. So tabouli, I definitely want to do some black-eyed peas and greens off the tower. That's been sort of my go-to everyday add to meals. And what I'm doing is creating a lot of sides, because then as long as I have food prepped with all these sides, then I can build meals off of that. We're gonna make some hummus, and I think the last thing will be kale chips. And if I see anything else that looks interesting, we'll grab that too. Come on. And my kitty cat wants to join us. So let's head over to the gardens. I'm gonna have to turn off the lights. Here's some chives. Oh, they smell so good. I don't know what I want to use these for yet, but I've been craving some chives. So we're gonna cut some of those. I need some green onion. This is a regular bulb onion, and I'm just gonna take some of the greens off of these. But we have enough greens, especially with the chives, to add to our tabouli. So let's head over to the other towers. I don't think... I have some small parsley on this side, and this is stinging nettle, and this is actually going to go in our black-eyed peas. I have a few plants of stinging nettle I need to trim back. And we like these young, tender leaves. All right, so on this tower, I have a couple of parsley plants. And you never want to take more than a third of a plant at a time because it can stunt the growth. So I like to plant multiple plants of things just so I can make sure I can get enough of a harvest without stressing them out. So I've got maybe 5 or 6 parsley going. Now I eat a lot of parsley because I like to make tabouli. Some greens for our black-eyed peas and greens. More stinging nettle. I'm letting a couple of these go to flower so that I can collect seeds. But the rest of them we will eat, and you'll have to, if you allow your plant to go to seed like this, you want to keep just a couple of the flowers blooming, otherwise it'll take over. And so what's going to happen is this plant is going to grow really fast. And so I'm going to be able to come out here and harvest greens. Every couple of days, just so I manage this side of the plant and keep it from going to flower while this side blooms. Ow. Now it is stinging nettle. Grab too much of it and it stings, but it's a superfood. This tower is almost empty, I just realized. So, water day tomorrow. On here, you can hear how empty it is. That sound is the sound of an empty tower. So I'm gonna harvest some of this parsley. Gorgeous. We need about 2 bundles worth. And we have cilantro. Oh, I haven't had cilantro in forever. Okay, now in this tower, this is the one where I have the tomato that looks stressed because it keeps curling its leaves. It's still curling it. Oh, kitty! My cat just about knocked you guys over. It's still curling its leaves. I don't know why. Some of these, a lot of these are kind of curly and droopy, so it could just be the way this plant looks. I don't know. We're just gonna keep moving forward. Sometimes when I don't know, just move forward and don't worry about it. There is no disease on it and it's flowering. It just shows signs of stress because the leaves are curled in. When I fill these tanks up, I have decided I'm gonna empty this tank and just add all new water and minerals and just see if that makes a difference. So off of this tower, I wanna get some kale, and we're gonna make kale chips, and then we are going to juice. I have some pears and apples that need to be eaten. This is a mustard forget the variety. It blooms really quickly. It's ready really quickly, so it's already going to flower. I did that intentionally because I wanted to get food off this tower really quickly. So we're gonna eat this one. This is a frizzle kale. I have lots of kales, and we still need to get some greens for our collard green, for our black-eyed peas and greens. So I'm going around and just collecting some cabbage leaves and broccoli leaves and cauliflower leaves because nothing's huge yet. The goal is obviously to get big bundles of, I'm really loving like broccoli leaves and cauliflower leaves in my beans, in my black-eyed peas. But I also have some collards going. So while we wait, I just take a couple of leaves off of plants and we can get a nice size bundle of greens to add to our black-eyed peas just by doing that. I've decided instead of juicing that mustard, I think I'm gonna use those greens in my greens and beans because those will be good. And I have a ton of things I can juice, like Swiss chard that I don't love with my black-eyed peas. So I'm gonna harvest some Swiss chard, then we'll head inside and make some recipes. All right guys, I got my black-eyed peas. I'm actually gonna take these over to the sink and rinse them, and then I cover them with about an inch of water, but I'm also gonna add the greens, and then we're just gonna Instapot them. This is a 3-quart Instapot, amazing, just does small batch stuff. So I'd like to do one with beans pretty much every other day so that we always have a stock of beans. And the ones I did yesterday, we're gonna turn those into hummus. And yeah, I'm gonna wash the greens, wash the beans, and then we'll turn them on. Super simple. I'm gonna juice this mustard like I originally planned. I am going to put the stinging nettle, which is over here, into the greens with the beans. So let me just get some of this rinsed off and then decide if I have enough to do all 4 recipes. So we want to juice, tabouli, greens and beans, and I would like to make kale chips. The kale chips I'm not certain about. Depends how many greens I'm willing to sacrifice in the beans. So I'm gonna go get these washed. Okay, with the stinging nettle, it stings, so it can be hard to prep. I wanna rinse these under some cold water and then just give them a light chop. I wanna eat the stems and the leaves, every part of the nettle. It's all edible, so, and it's easier than trying to pick the leaves off, and there's a lot of nutritional value in the stems. They'll actually taste really good, and our beans. So once I get the other things rinsed, all I'm gonna do is just kind of grab these like I just did, or you can use tongs. I'm not gonna use tongs. Much smarter. Rinse them off. And then give them a quick chop, toss them right into, I already have our water in here. I have about 2 inches over my black-eyed peas. I gave them a good rinse. I am going to juice. I've been on a big citrus kick, loving all things oranges and grapefruit, but I have some old pears that I don't want to waste. So we're going to go ahead and make an apple pear juice with ginger and lemon. And this is how I get rid of food that just sat a little bit too long instead of wasting it. Or I will freeze it and we'll use it for smoothies. And I'm going to use this lemon juice. I'm making a video next week on how we shop, and I actually bulk buy. Just did a huge bulk order of citrus. I did a couple of cases of oranges, grapefruit, lemons. It's just not here yet, and I've had a really hard time finding organic lemons. I like to juice the peels, so when my lemons come in, I'm actually going to juice them all and freeze them so that I can just add those to my juice. But this is a great alternative if you don't have access to fresh lemons. And then be careful with lemons, because the lemons are a big appeal product that's coming out on the market. So just make sure to check your lemons, because even organic lemons will be allowed to have the APEEL on them. So we've got our stuff here. I may get another apple depending on what this tastes like once we get started. The thing with pears is they can be really gritty. So I'm going to strain this as it's coming out of the juicer. All right, and I don't need to wash these. The only reason I'm washing the others is because I do get aphids in my garage, and they would be on things like parsley and hard to see. They are not on Swiss chard or my mustards, so I don't have to worry about washing those, which is awesome. And I did pre-wash all of these already. All right, let's give it a test. Wow, tastes like candy. Like a, I was gonna say lime would be better with pear, but the ginger, is this lemon? No, it's lemon. I don't know. It is really, really good. I don't know, it reminds me of some sort of like slushy when you were a kid. So, but it tastes like lime. That's interesting. And I was thinking lime would be a better mix with pear once I started doing it, but either way, this is really good. So that's just to drink right now. I'm gonna pour that into a jar. And pear is gritty, so I could strain this or put it through the sieve one more time, but I like it. That is so good. And I'll clean this later when we're not videoing. But my pulp, I get the question a lot what I do with this. You can dehydrate it and turn it into like a superfood powder, especially if you're using a lot of greens like I do in the summer. I don't worry about that. I don't like powders in smoothies and things like that. So I just give this either to my worms if I'm worm farming, or to chickens. And if you can't have chickens, worm farming is a great option. I'll show you guys my worm farms in the spring. Right now they're shut down because I needed to secure them a little bit better, because when you put this kind of stuff in there, I've had bears get into my worm farms, which is not ideal. This, oh my gosh. So let's go do our beans. Let's get our beans going. Then we're gonna make our tabouli. And if I have enough energy left, we'll whip up some kale chips. All right, so here's our beans and greens. It's the perfect amount, so I can't really take you guys into this bowl to look, but I had 2 inches above the beans in water, and then now the greens are dry on top. And that's kind of what you're going for. I don't like to have the water over my greens because it'll be too much liquid when they're done cooking. So, I don't know, can you guys see that? It's not, the water's not over the top, it's just right along the bottom edge of my greens. So we're gonna cook this. For 13 minutes on high pressure cook, and our beans are done. I pulled out some kale, not a ton, but just enough to, I like to have some kale chips around to dip in hummus, or just when I'm craving something crunchy, salty. So we'll do those. But before we do that, we need to crack the wheat for the tabouli. So I'm making a traditional tabouli, so I'm going to crack whole wheat berries to make wheat bulgur. I think that's what you call it, bulgur. And I'm gonna do that with my Vitamix because I don't have a food processor right now. So this is a whole red wheat, organic red wheat. You can use any kind of grain, but this tastes the most traditional in my opinion. So let's grind this up. And I keep bay leaves in here just for pest purposes because pests don't like bay leaves. So if you do that, make sure not to grind those. And we're gonna put this just on 2 and see what kind of texture we can get. You want to try and break this up, but you don't want to turn it into flour. And whole berries are going to have fats in them, so you also don't want it to get too hot or gummed up. So we're just going to kind of slowly break it up a little bit and then test it. I have it on a 5 right now, which is probably a little too high, but 2 wasn't doing it. So I'm going to try a 4, and then we're going to sift out the flour. All right, I'm gonna call it there. We're gonna sift out any flour that might have produced, and then we have our wheat for our pasta. I do a dry bulgur in my tabouli, and I'm gonna mix it in with my dressing, which is just olive oil and lemon, and let it soak in. And then this is gonna take, I think about 24 hours is ideal to let this tabouli sit and marinate for it to get really, really good. I also like to add my tomatoes to it as well, and it soaks in all that sweet tomato juice. So let's get started on that. All right, so the dressing is 1/3 cup olive oil, a good olive oil. To 3 tablespoons lemon. All right, so I have about 2 medium tomatoes. I just did an assortment of cherry tomatoes, all different colors. That's going into the oil in the lemon. And I do that way because the lemon will pull out the juices from the tomato. And I like those juices in this recipe. And then we need about 1/4 cup of our wheat. And I just got out some of the fine, like flour. All right, we have our dressing. We mixed our wheat in and our tomatoes. It's parsley, green onions, about 1/4 cup of peppermint, and we're gonna put it all in here. Mix it up and let it sit. It gets better with time. Oh, and we need to add salt and pepper. Let me do that now. Like 1/4 teaspoon each. Now we're just gonna let it sit. And our last thing, we are gonna make some kale chips, and then our beans should be done, so I'll show you guys what those look like. All right, for our kale chips, it's pretty easy. I like to do a simple olive oil, apple cider vinegar, salt, and nutritional yeast. And I'm gonna use, I've got a couple of dehydrators. One is like a commercial larger one, but it's not working right now. I need to fix a part in it. So I have another one I'll show you guys that's really affordable, but I'm going for a raw food setting. So I want my temperature to be at like 105 or under, and that not all dehydrators will do that. So I'm gonna put a little drizzle of oil, not much, and want to massage this in. That is the key. If it's not fully massaged in, they just don't have that amazing flavor that we like with kale chips. And I'm not making a huge amount because they don't stay crispy for very long. So sometimes when I make too many at once, then I have to keep redehydrating them to get them crisp. So I like to make just what I want to snack on tonight and tomorrow. All right, so we have these nice and massaged. All the parts are covered. Adding the apple cider vinegar, salt, okay, this is a Nesco, and it goes down to 95. So I bought this when we lived in our camper, and it worked really great just because it was smaller. And it has several layers high, but I don't need them all, which is another reason why I like it. I'm just going to get the bottom. It still has dehydrated tomato parts from when I did tomatoes. I want to add my nutritional yeast. Our beans are done. And I heavily coat these. I like them almost breaded in nutritional yeast. Am I laying flat? Now I take these outside to our back porch because the smell is pretty strong with the apple cider vinegar and the nutritional yeast, and I will keep this. I'm going to do 105 for the heat, and they should be done. Probably take about, there's not many of them and I spread them out pretty good, so maybe 5 hours. See how our beans did. And I just remembered I was going to make hummus, but I'm going to save that for next time because I'm out of bandwidth. Ooh. And I don't know if I'm going to salt these. Let's just see how they turned out. So it's perfect. I like it to be about 50% greens and 50% beans. And I would say we're pretty close to that. Shy a little bit of greens. Oh my gosh, so good. And so we're going for about 50% beans, 50% greens. The beans are cooked perfectly. All right, so I added a little bit of salt and stirred it up so that every bite has some greens. Give it a taste test. Look at that goodness. Thanks for joining me, guys. I'll see you on the next video.